In this section, I'll just quickly run through how things all connect up, and I'll also show you how to use the 3D printed gland if that's something you wish to do. Now you may notice that I'm doing this halfway through. It's a little bit of an Eric Morecambe. I'm doing everything correctly, just not necessarily in the right order. You've got to be old enough to know that one. If we look at the diagram behind me, you'll see we've got all the parts that are outdoors, which of course are the camera, the lens and the bracket, which we've seen earlier. And then we've got all the parts inside, so that's your Raspberry Pi, your power supply for your Pi, the PoE injector, your Wi-Fi, and you need a keyboard and mouse just to be able to do the original setup and a screen as well. So I'll quickly show you how to use these little adapters if you've decided to use these. And this is if you cannot terminate your own connections on the Ethernet cable. So if you were to cut that off and put it through into your case, of course you've got no end on. Unfortunately, the holes in the case, you can pass that through, but you can't pass it through the glands. So if you've got your own connections to do your own terminating, you can use the standard glands that come with the housing. However, if you haven't, you can buy these cables with the ends already on, already terminated, and you can use these gland plugs. So what you need to do is, in the larger hole, put in the first half like that. In fact, we shall put it in with the cable lying on it. So hold the cable on it like that, you can see, push it through the hole and turn it the right way round. So have it like that, push it in. You may need to slightly trim the hole just to allow this gland plug to fit in. So we start like that. So the cable's inside with enough slack inside to be able to connect up to the back of the camera. And then we get the other half and we sit it on the top so that the cable again is up the center of it. And then we push the two parts together and we've now got a gland on the outside holding the cable. It doesn't hold it very firmly, but it holds it enough. And then what you can do is, if you open the case up, you probably can't see on this, but inside where the gland protrudes through, if you slip the ring over to the gland that's sticking out now, put it over the cable as well, you can then wrap a zip tie, plastic tie around that to pull it tight. And that should give just enough hold onto that to stop it dropping out. You can, if you like, put a little bit of sealant around just to really hold it. But as long as this cable isn't being pulled around once it's all set up, you shouldn't need it. And the joy of this is if you need to strip the thing down anytime, you can take this gland out, take the cable out, still with its terminator on, terminated connection, should I say, and put it all back together without having to use the tools. So that's the gland that's mentioned in a previous video that's linked on one of the previous videos. And that's how we get the cable to come from the camera. And then this cable, obviously you'll have a longer one that goes into the house. And if we follow it back through, you'll see as the cable comes inside through the wall, you come to a PoE or power over Ethernet injector. So this is sticking power one side to the camera and sending the data back to your Raspberry Pi. Now the ones I've been using are like this. This is obviously a UK plug, and you'll see it says PoE on one side and LAN on the other. I can just get that tilted right. So the LAN side over here, that's the one that goes straight to the Pi, and your camera connects into the one that says PoE. Now there's lots of different designs of these. This is the one I use. So the cable from the camera comes into the PoE side of that. The cable coming out of there to the LAN goes into your Raspberry Pi. So here's the Raspberry Pi. We have it in a case with some cooling fans. If you can have cooling on there, it will help. If you've got a good solid metal case, with like this one, with a lot of metal to it, quite thick, you can get away without fans, but I tend to keep them on. So on here you've got an Ethernet port, so that's where the cable from the PoE injector comes into the Raspberry Pi. Now if the Raspberry Pi 5 comes online to be used, then the connection's on the other side, but it's still the same, it's only one connection. So cable from there, from the PoE injector into your Pi. Your Pi is obviously indoors. Now what that needs is it needs power, and power is provided through the USB-C connector here. And when you first set it up, and you may want to leave it set up like this, is you will need a screen. You'll need a screen to be able to put in your Wi-Fi password at least to get your Pi to be online, so that you can then, if you wish, do remote desktop, and then you can run it headless without a screen, but you need a screen to start with. So you use the connector closest to the USB-C power port, use that one there, cable from there, which is a micro HDMI, and then that goes off to your screen, your TV or whatever, to give you a picture. And again, initially you'll need a keyboard and mouse. Now USB, you've got 4 to choose from, so that's easy to do that as well. When you first connect the software up, you connect it to the Wi-Fi. Once that's done, you can then use remote software like AnyDesk, TeamViewer, No Machine. You can even log in via Shell, VNC, whatever you wish to use. But you will need the keyboard, mouse and screen just for the initial setup. That's really all of the hardware connected together. Once you've got all that together and you've done all the previous steps of making sure that the camera's programmed correctly and that you've done the initial software setup, so when you plug the camera in, it will then say, okay, I can now see you, I can now view it on the Pi. That's all of the hardware connected together. So the next video we shall be looking at how the data is stored on the Pi and where online you can find your data to review it, to share it and do whatever you like with it.